Let's get started. So your existing solutions in Microsoft Teams. Well, of course, in the beginning of every company, of course, has a web-based application. It can be a custom-based application. It has to be a web-based, of course, because Teams is also web-based. We're not gonna run exe files or even PAT files in Microsoft Teams. But if it's web-based, then we can service it in Microsoft Teams, which makes it accessible from where everybody's working at. And most people are working in Teams these days. So yeah, just few clicks and your application that you either built 10 years ago or a year ago or whatever, or even a third-party application that you built, that you bought somewhere or your company bought somewhere, servers in Teams makes it much easier for people to access. You don't want to know how many intranets I've seen that were just a massive amount of links because people needed to find all their applications somewhere. So Teams isn't fancy or anything special in that case. It uses iframes, which it's a well-tested framework. It's a web technology that's already been around for a long time now. It has its perks, it has its drawbacks. So yeah, there are things we have to take into consideration. One of them is security. So if you once build an app, if it's a web-based app, you should have built security into it. It used to be the X-frame options, making sure that your app was not iframeable, because if somebody can log in and they can iframe your login page, if you really want to try it out, try iframing the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 login page. You won't be able to do that. Why? Because then somebody can iframe your web page with the logins and then put it on their own web page and then hide it with some CSS, and then somebody can steal your data or your login credentials. So yeah, these are all trusted and very old. The X-frame options is already an old one. Nowadays it's content security policy that will protect your app. So if you did your job not correctly, but if it's an internal app, I don't want to it's not that I always do it, but still it should be there, but it's not always there. If it's there, you have to take that into account. We'll look at that a little bit later. But yeah, of course, your app has security, but Teams also has some security measures in place, which means that normally if you run something from a web page, then making requests to different domains, that's not allowed. You always have to do requests to the same domain. But of course, if that was the case, then the internet wouldn't work, because we all had to host our own files and images and JavaScript files and whatever. So there is a trick to it. Well, in Teams, it's called the valid domain. So if we add a domain to our manifest, if we do the App Studio, it's all automatic. But if we add entries to our valid domains, that will make it servable in Teams. So that way we tell Teams, hey, you can do this domain, it's from me, it's safe, so go ahead and serve content from it. Now, easiest way to get an application in Teams is a static tab. So a static tab is a personal tab, like you see on the left-hand side of Teams. You can just, within a few clicks, get something in there, get a working application or an existing application inside of Teams. Of course, do we need a more Teams-aware application? So if we're building something from scratch, or if we really need to have something Teams-aware, then of course the Teams SDK comes into the picture. But just to add it, it's pretty basic. We create a static tab and we're good to go. Let me show you. Now, I have created the most fancy app you will ever see. Actually, it's just file, new project, new .NET. Start new project, and you're good to go. So you'll probably recognize how cool it looks. So give it 1 second to start up. There we go. Should be running now. Yep. So I think everybody recognized this from the day they started development. So if you're not a developer, you can also do this, of course. As long as you have access to deploy apps in Teams, you can also get an existing app inside of Teams. So this is my cool company app where you can order lunch. So very ugly, but very basic. I think everybody who did a few lessons in development can already build this. So I need to get this running, of course, inside of Teams. Now, because this is running locally, I of course also have ngrok running, which makes it servable from the web. If you have your web application running somewhere, if it's already an existing one, it should be serviceable from the web. Now in Teams, I think we all know that, and if you don't know that, take a look at it. App Studio, easiest way to get started, because if you need to get an app inside of Teams, It's with a manifest. We call it a manifest. It's JSON file. It describes what does your app do, who created it, what is the company name, what's the features of the app. So yeah, if you don't like JSON or you're just starting out, then this one is the simplest. Why? Because there's a UI that will guide you into everything. I already created one. This is of course my test app 1, which is a really cool naming because in other tenants I'm already at test app 95. So just give it a name. This is the things you really have to do. It has to give you a unique ID and a version number, of course, and all that stuff. Give it your own name. Nothing fancy. But we add a personal tab. Within that personal tab, I'll just click edit for now. We just give it a name, an entity ID, which is I think for the people who come from the SharePoint background, an internal name or something that defines it as a unique ID. Just call tab again, and I just gave it my URL. So just my normal where my app is running. In this case, it's a public URL. Click save. We click install. Of course, you need to have permissions to do this. Not everybody can do this. So if you're not a tenant admin or you're not a Teams admin, then this is it's not allowed in your company. It's gonna be a little bit harder, but you can still download this package and maybe give it to some administrator in your company who can then install it. I can just click install because this is a demo application or a demo tenant, so I'm in full charge here. I click on add and I already get my app running. Should be running here. Where's my Teams? Yeah, of course. The security, that's what I meant. So I built this app normally according to best practice. So I said, no, you cannot iframe my app. So if you didn't build the app yourself, if you're not a developer, just ask, hey, Mr. Developer Man, or if you're your own developer, just say, okay, I want to make sure that teams.microsoft.com, where Teams is running, of course, can service my app. So now I'm allowed this. As you can see here, these are the X-frame options. These are the old ones. Those still work in Internet Explorer, of course. But if you want to be modern, these days, content security policy is like the new version with a lot more options. So you can say, images can be shown from this domain, and I can iframe it from this domain. And so there's a lot more options than only just the X-frame of the old one. So I have it back running. So if we're going to try it again, so I just click refresh, we have our company app. Now some things, so here I can order my lunch, of course. Yeah, cool, I got a cool pop-up, yeah. So some things we have to take in consideration, of course. You already might notice it. We have our Teams navigation here, we have other navigation here, so the About tab is here, a tab. We have, because this was my original application, we have some navigation here as well, which makes it, of course, if you have a really complex application with a lot of navigation and a lot of a lot of stuff going on, it might get a little bit complex. So if you're converting existing applications to be shown in Teams, take that into consideration that maybe you want to put a small part into Teams and not the entire application, the thing that's really necessary to be in Teams and not the entire navigation structure with the 5 million links in. Now, I did this for C#, but it doesn't matter. It's iframe technology, whatever you like from a development perspective. If you have an app that's running, I don't know, SAP, as you can see here, this one is Node. So I'm running Node as well. I already created it in advance. So this is of course, my test app 2 and my really cool Node skills, which are not that nice. Should be running. Is it still running? Yeah, it should be. There we go. See how cool? See, in this one, I already created Teams specific. Why? Because I added the SDK. So this is a Node app, but of course I did it with the generator, so it already knows. They already built in Teams specific JavaScript that makes sure that Teams can talk to my app and my app can talk to Teams, which makes sure that I can get, okay, this is my username. But same story, I can just put stuff into Teams, existing stuff. Now, if I go back to my test app 1, of course, how do I get specific? So let's say I have my app in Teams, but I want to get specific, I want to get specific context in Teams. Well, in App Studio, it's really shown pretty good. I will show you in the manifest, really, the JSON file a little bit later. But as you can see here, we have two URLs we can enter, a content URL and a website URL. Now, what's the difference? The content URL is the thing that Teams will show. The website URL is a thing that if you click on the website icon in your app, it will open a second tab or a new browser, depending on if you're in the Teams client, and it will open up this URL. So this way I can say, hey, in a query string, super simple, the context now is Teams. And I can even say, hey, Teams, also provide me with some additional data. You can view whatever, the few things that you can get from Teams that Teams can serve to your application in the query string. You can find on the documentation, of course, it's like a tenant ID or sometimes the channel ID or the Teams ID. So depending on where you are. In this case, it's a static tab, so I can get my username. So let's save this one. Let's see if I can install the new version. I didn't update it, so let's see if it works. Could be that I have to bump the version. Oh no, see, we're already good to go. So in this version, nothing fancy, nothing specific. Yeah, don't shoot me. It's really ugly, actually. I'm almost embarrassed to show you. So if I look here, the only thing I do is get the context out of the query string, get the username out of the query string. If it's Teams, I have my special layout, so my special view without the navigation and with the added hello Rick, so hello my username, and I just show that. While if it's not, then I just use my normal application. So if I now click, see, this is the website icon. If you click here, just open up the normal application. So this way you can just surface your application pretty basic, pretty simple in Teams. Of course, remember what I said about the valid domain. So if you go here, that's the cool thing about App Studio. It already does that for you. I didn't show you that, but that's because it just works automatically in App Studio. If you go to domains and permissions, you will see it already added my domain here. Why? Because it figured out from the tab, hey, this is the domain. I can't even change it, just read only. So App Studio is smart enough. Of course, if you do everything from the manifest directly, which, yeah, if you get used to developing for Microsoft Teams, you do it like this. Then of course you can do whatever you want, and you can of course delete it here. Remember, if you're doing stuff like this and you have weird issues like I just had, that it doesn't want to show it or something like that, then this could be one of the problems. And because it's browser based, of course, we can even use the browser geolocation or media. So you can do a lot of normal stuff that you can do in normal web development as well. Now, if we go back to my presentation. So, quick wrap up. So, things to consider. Okay, responsive web design. I know it's been around for years, but yeah, still not all applications are, and you are already running inside of Teams with the Teams navigation, so, or in the Teams client. So yeah, I wouldn't add a web application from the 90s in there, because then you're gonna see some weird things. Don't do that. Now, like I said, Teams already has navigation, so adding more and more layers of navigation onto it, yeah, it's not gonna make your users have a simple program to use or simple application to use. If you have the time, so quickly add your application to Teams. Won't take you that long, but if you have the time, make your application Teams aware by implementing the SDK. It's even if it's just switching the theme of Teams. So if somebody has the dark theme or the light theme, switching that with your application, with the look and feel of your application, makes a whole world of difference. And of course, adding a different content URL and the website URL gives your application the ability to know if a user is visiting it from Teams. So that was super fast, super fly. I hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, okay, I think Stefan already did the intro. If you want to know more, select the Techers Show. Back to you, Vasa.
Excellent. Thank you, Rick. I have one question for you. Why would you expose your existing application in Teams?
Because yeah, people are working now these days more and more in Teams, and I think there's a lot of studies out there now these days that say if you switch focus too much, that yeah, it's not good. You lose time. You have to get back on track. If you're already in Teams, you're already working there. It's super easy. Just even if you're in a meeting, I don't want to open up my intranet, click on the next link to go to my CRM system, then click on the next system link to go on the sales system, because that's in my mind the way I have to go to that system, and then find my information. No, if I'm in Teams, I can find my information there while I'm I'm leading it, I'm having the meeting, or I'm having a conversation about it. So that will be the.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that you have a good clarification on that as well, because I think you covered that in your book as well. So that's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Rick. I'm still sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, on that one.